Okay, hi guys. Welcome to the REVN Community Stream Update 0.15.8. Um, this is a really exciting community stream for us, uh, and I think we'll just jump right into it and see what we've got coming out in this next week. Uh, um,
Yeah, so first we've got some new art from our illustrator Matt, showcasing some of the Revenant, exploring the world of Revan. Something he's been working on for a while. It's pretty cool to see it finished like this.
yeah, super into it. Love seeing the key art always. It gives such a great vision of, where the game is going and the aspects that we're going to be able to improve on. So, um, I really like this piece, and I think it shows a few different skins here. We've got the spider, the bee, I recognize for sure. Um, and is that knight or noble on the right?
I think that's Noble on the right. Yeah,
Noble, yeah. Um, so definitely, I know I've been using Spider recently in my playtests with the new Crow helmet that came out in the previous patch. I think they look great together.
yeah, good stuff. All right. What other
So,
new content this week we got?
so uh, right away, Kyle's been doing some work with some materials, and we'll be showing that later in the stream. We're gonna have some just new textures, kind of not huge stuff, um, but it's just gonna add a little bit of graphical fidelity to some of the skins that could use some texture updates here and there. But we're all really excited for that. But more importantly, we're gonna be testing some new weapons in this coming week. So that's going to be the rocket rifle and the larger over-the-shoulder rocket launcher. So currently, both of these are still using the just assault rifle texture, and putting them both in at the same time so that we can kind of compare and contrast, um, and see which ones the community feels like they identify more with. Uh, So we'll definitely be looking forward to testing that on Tuesday and Wednesday. Um, and I think Arb's actually going to be hosting some weekend play tests too,
Yeah, I
if
think
I'm
she's
not
got one going
mistaken.
on tomorrow, on Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So
Awesome.
if you've got the gaming during the Discord server, you can definitely hop in and play on Saturdays now.
Yep. So the rocket rifle is going to be kind of like a faster firing, lower payload, more consistent rocket launcher type deal. And the large launcher is going to be the more traditional over the shoulder. Well, it's been designed as to be over their shoulder, but obviously we don't have the model in for it or anything right now. But it is going to be like kind of the larger payload rocket launcher with less rounds and a lower rate of fire, but more damage per shot. So uh, definitely going to be looking for feedback around these two weapons so that we can determine where we want to put our developers' bandwidth and which one we want to put out first.
Yeah, I'm really excited to try these, especially the rocket rifle. It's kind of an iteration or an evolution of an old weapon we had back in the closed alpha, and that gun was a lot of fun, especially with jetpack. So I'm looking forward to its return.
Yeah, yep, super excited. And so here we've got the new material that Kyle was working on. And like I said, it's not like a super crazy overhaul or anything, but you'll see it does have a little bit better of reflections and a bit more of a roughness to the texturing of it. Um, all around just to kind of make it less homogeneous, I think is the goal. And
Yeah, there's a
um,
few other small improvements here. He was telling me about the other day. The edgeware is a lot better. So this is basically the material that's at the heart of a lot of our skins in the game. And this is either rolling out in Monday's patch for patch 15.8, or it's going to be kind of rolling out on a per skin basis as we upgrade each one of them individually over the next couple of weeks. So I did
Right.
want to clarify, you might not see this improvement on every single skin right away, but you will start to see it rolling out over the next few weeks. And so it's essentially taking the way that we build our textures and upgrading it a little bit. So like Alistair said, there's more roughness, there's more reflectivity, but there's also small details like the edgeware here is a much higher resolution. It looks a lot cleaner.
Hmm.
Here it's kind of speckled and there is something going on here, but it's kind of low resolution. And so we're improving that and improving the underlying technology we use to create textures for our characters.
Right. And like you pointed out, Silas, I actually really like the edgeware that you were just talking about because it's almost like there's a little bit more of like a gradient there. Um, and I think it's gonna look really good as we apply it to more and more skins. All right. And this is going to be a fun one. So we've got a whole lot of stat changes coming this week. A lot of this was based off of community feedback around some of the things that we've been seeing in the game, past few playtests. So first up is actually maybe one of the less exciting changes, one of the more straight up clarity changes. Poison dart's damage type is being switched to true damage. It was previously energy damage. Um, it's because generally with poison themed abilities within the game right now. Most of them are doing true damage. This was kind of an edge case that did a different type of damage. So we just wanted to improve the clarity there and make sure that it was more apparent that, when you're being hit by something that's giving you a poison effect, it's going to not be reduced by energy damage resistance.
Oh,
Um, Silas, you want to tell me a little bit more about Assassin's Edge changes?
yeah,
I know
there's
they're
kind of
pretty
a
big.
lot of numbers changing there. So Assassin Edge is a super powerful item for assassins. And while we love it, it's also doing just a little bit too much damage. So it has a triggered passive effect where the first time you damage a player, you gain a bonus amount of damage, which used to be between 50% to 90% bonus damage based on the level of the item. And you would have that damage for 3 seconds, and then the effect would go into, I think, a 20-second cooldown. What we've done here is we've just lowered the amount of bonus damage you get during that like assassination burst. So instead of scaling from 50% to 90%, it's being lowered to 40% to 60%. So at tier one, you're not seeing too much of a difference. You're getting 40% instead of 50%. But at high levels, 60% is quite a bit lower than 90%. So we're kind of crunching down on the scaling of this item because it was very, very powerful. Um, and so we had to nerf it.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that like 60% is still going to be a huge damage boon
It's
at the
more
end of the
damage
day.
than you can get anywhere else in the game with an item.
Right. Um, so one of the core design philosophies of Revan is that it is a MOBA, and as such, it should have strategic elements to its gameplay. And on one hand, we did really like that Assassin's Edge was really shining for the people who wanted it, who wanted to like pop up and burst someone down. And I think it was doing that really well, but it was doing it a little too well. So we're keeping that aspect of it, uh, but making sure that there is going to be some sort of window for more counterplay um, from the attacked party, because as a MOBA, it's really important that fights be long enough that players are able to engage and interact with each other more. And it was a little bit unhealthy with the speed at which it would increase your TTK or decrease your time to kill, rather.
Right.
Uh, um, Next up, uh, Rogue Shotgun is getting a structure damage multiplier change. This is just been Rogue Shotgun was added fairly recently into the game. Um, and this is just kind of some continued tuning of that gun. particularly with dual wield. You could output a pretty disgusting amount of damage to a turret. And although we do like that there are more effective strategies to destroying turrets than others, it was, again, much like in Assassin Edge's case, just too much. It was just too fast, too good. So we're going to be scaling that back. This is the easiest way for us to do that, most straightforward. Um, I'm sure it will still work to some extent, but maybe try the Fang or another gun if you want to do some structure melting with dual wield. Because we do like the idea of like split pushing and all that, but want to make sure that everything is kind of kept in check. And then lastly,
Oh, this is
a
big.
change that's actually, yeah, it doesn't look huge on paper, but this is actually a really big change. The armor gear specs. So I don't know, Silas. Do you wanna jump in a little bit more on this and tell me why exactly we're
Yeah.
doing this and what's happening here?
So we've gotten a lot of feedback recently about bruiser type loadouts. And by bruisers, we mean loadouts that have a lot of armor and a lot of weapon damage. When you look at sort of the balanced triangle in REVN, you've got casters, DPS, and tanks, and bruisers fall somewhere between tank and DPS, which is a fun playstyle when you're trying to be pretty oppressive because you can dish out damage to other tanks and you can soak up damage from the DPS players. You're never going to be as good as either one of those roles, but you're landing somewhere in the middle trying to beat both of them. Um, and that bruiser loadout sort of category has been really strong lately in REVN, and the main reason for that was the amount of armor that was available to them. And so we started to look at the data of what gear specs, what items, what abilities are players using when they're using a bruiser playstyle. And there was one thing in common with all of those builds, or the majority of those builds, and that was that they had the armor gear specialization, um, which gives them extra armor as they level up in game. So rather than going and adjusting every single item in the game that gives you armor and lowering those items, which would be a nerf to tanks, like pure tanks, which was not our intention. Um, we instead addressed the armor gear specialization, which was essentially the way that bruisers were able to take a lot of armor without actually buying armor items. Because gear specializations are not tied to which items you have, they're just tied to how many and what level your items are. So it's a way that we're able to essentially lower armor for players who are not buying a lot of armor items, and we're hoping that this will make bruisers slightly less effective in the upcoming meta.
Right. And when we talked to some of our playtesters who were running these bruiser builds, a lot of them had the consensus that they were taking the armor gear specialization, which was definitely very helpful to us in determining that the armor gear spec being the secondary source of scaling um, was actually overtuned. So hopefully the idea here is that if you still want to play a bruiser, you'll be able to take your armor gear spec and buy 2 to 3 armor items and still feel relatively tanky. But if you are choosing 2 armor items rather than 3, you're going to be sacrificing some more of that tankiness that you had in the previous patches. So
Yeah,
just
and
want to
something
keep.
else, just to kind of throw this out there, something else we're going to be monitoring in this week's playtest is taking 2 armor gear specs or 1 armor gear specialization. So,
Mhm.
as many of you may know, if you're playing the game, when you choose gear specialization stats for your loadouts, you can put 2 of the same stat. So in this case, you could take 2 armor stats, and so you'd be gaining 14 armor every 5 gear power. Or you could take armor and damage or armor and health, whatever you want. So this is something we're going to be taking a look at as well because this may be another source of the problem that you could take 2 of the same stat and gain a lot of it for free, and then specialize somewhere else in your build to a really high level as well.
Right on. And I think that about wraps it up for stat changes in this week. So we'll move on to our bug fix. Uh, so maybe you can talk a little bit more about this because I know you're the one who probably fixed this bug.
Yeah, so there's a number of abilities in the game, mostly grenades, that if you were swapping weapons and then you cast the ability at the same time, it would we would call it, it would break your gun or it would freeze your gun because your character still thought he was switching weapons, but you animation canceled out of that to throw a grenade, and then your gun was still kind of like stuck in the eternal loop of being swapped and would never reset. So we got a lot of those bugs fixed in this patch. So just kind of nice quality of life thing to get fixed as we continue to polish the game.
Right on.
All right,
And
I'm just gonna jump back to Matt's beautiful key art here while we talk about some other big news for Revan.
right. Um, so uh, as of today, uh, Revan is now partnered with Playable. Um, I know everyone on the team here is super excited for uh, this partnership because we, cannot, we just can't wait to keep developing the game and, keep growing the community and seeing where we can go with Revan. Um, this is a huge step for us, and it's a big step for Playable, and we are really excited to be working with them in the future of Revan.
Yeah, and if you want more information about that, you can check the announcements channel in Discord. We've got some info posted there, and we're going to be sharing more information about the partnership in the coming weeks as we move forward with them.
Yep. So be on the lookout for all that. I think that pretty much wraps up this week's community stream. We'll look forward to seeing you guys on Tuesday for the playtest.
All right, see you guys. Have a good weekend.